the 5 things that I really value as a leader, and I'm going to hope to drive with the organization. And one of them is predictability. And predictability can be seen as a very boring thing if you're always doing exactly what we thought you were going to do. But in sales and as a sales leader, that's exactly what I want to drive, right? Like I want to drive an organization that does what we say we are going to do, which means forecast accuracy. It means delivering on our numbers.
Welcome to the Emblazers Show, where B2B leaders are igniting revenue. I'm your host, Abby Kerr. And on today's podcast, my colleague Tim Riesterer is talking with Kevin Bognar, the Chief Revenue Officer at Stripe. And they're going to be talking about all things CRO, from Kevin's own story of rising into the position, his observations for others in the role and those who aspire to sit in the chair someday, and how leadership needs to evolve to meet this next generation of sellers who are coming into the profession. But first, a little bit about Kevin. Kevin Bognar is Chief Revenue Officer at Stripe. He has spent more than 2 decades building high-performing go-to-market organizations. He's led revenue across startups and Fortune 100 technology companies, consistently aligning sales, marketing, customer success, and RevOps under one scalable strategy. Over his career, Kevin has driven more than $3 billion in revenue, grown teams from 50 to over 350 people, and led industry-defining turnarounds. Most recently, he helped Outreach achieve its first cash flow positive quarter in company history and boosted forecast accuracy from 67 to 99% in just 90 days by leaning into AI-powered insights. He's especially passionate about tech-enabled selling, modern GTM architecture across PLG, SLG, and CLG models, and the culture change required to make AI truly stick in sales organizations. Get ready for a sharp, practical conversation with Kevin Bognar. Let's go to the episode right now.
I'm excited about this episode. It's great to have you, Kevin. I've watched your career and watched you ascend to a CRO position at really one of the coolest, maybe not well enough known, but really cool big companies out there, Stripe. And so thanks for being on the show, and our sales leaders can't wait to hear from you.
Yeah, I'm really excited about being here as well, Tim. Thanks for the opportunity. And it was great to be reconnected with you for a second time in my career since I started here at Stripe.
So what I guess I appreciate the most is, I don't know, this can be an overused term, but there's just a certain authenticity about you, and it feels real, it feels current, it feels relevant, so own all that. And I can't wait to sort of have you share with our audience, who I think are mostly going to be aspiring type CROs, not all already CROs, a little bit about your journey and what that took, and then what it looks like today and how it's maybe different than a couple years ago. It can't not be different with what's going on.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, first, let me just say thank you for that. That's maybe the highest compliment you could give me, because that's what I aspire to do every day. So thanks. I don't want to go any further without at least acknowledging that. It's been an interesting journey, no doubt. I mean, as just a kind of quick flyby, I spent 10 years in consulting out of school, did that in the ERP space, and probably the biggest decade for ERP in the 90s, and moved from there to Microsoft. And I spent 18 years at Microsoft, and 18 years at any company is a long time, but it flew by there, and I had just a ton of different really fun roles that kept it fresh. Everything from carrying a bag for a long time as a mid-market seller to leading a global account across the globe for Accenture. They were my sell-to customer for Microsoft. And then a variety of different manager roles, the last of which was starting a team that was responsible for all of our specialist org and pre-sales technical specialists for North and South America. And the reason that was fun is because it started as about 50 employees and grew to about 350 over a 2-year period. So that was super exciting. I took a huge jump then. I would say a huge jump just in terms of my own personal growth by moving out of Microsoft, and I went over to Philips Healthcare for 3 years, which was a totally different thing and on paper might look a little odd, but they were looking to move to more of an as-a-service model and really capitalize on the strength of the data they had between endpoints, between devices, much like Microsoft was starting to do. So I did that for 3 years. Then went on and did a CRO job at a PE-owned company, and then a global head of sales at a VC-owned company. So had some small organizations, had some massive organizations, and had a variety of different ownership structures. So it has been a journey.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You got your VC, your PE, you're publicly held, you're totally private, and spanning the world of global companies down to startups. So I'm not going to ask what was your favorite, because I got to believe that that mosaic has made you kind of who you are today. And part of why I said you sort of feel current and relevant and authentic is I was recently watching a panel discussion of 3 CROs, a totally different place, different conference. And I kind of admit, I kind of felt like I was hearing, these are active CROs, but they sounded like they were 10, 20 years ago. And it sounded like they thought they were leading, all of them were leading groups of 50, 60-year-old men. And that dynamic is changing so much. So let's just sort of talk about what you're seeing in this chair right now and what you're having to respond to as a CRO today, and with the constituents you now have on your teams, and how that's evolved you as a leader, given that you've been around a little bit.
I have. I'm reminded of that every once in a while by my own children as well as my team. But I feel like kind of what I'm doing right now is a bit of my calling. I know that sounds super deep and maybe too dramatic, but I do have about 120 person organization here at Stripe. The majority of them are earlier in their career, so it might be their second sales job. They may have come just from an SDR or BDR job into sales, right up through kind of folks in their, I would say, their early to mid 30s who've had a couple different jobs that are more in our mid-market for our larger customer base. And the reason I bring that up is the way they learn, the way they approach their job, the way they approach our users might be very different than when I started and I was that age. And, my 10 years in consulting, I had to wear a tie every day to work, and I was coding for some of that. That's very different than what we're experiencing today. But when I say I feel like it's a bit of my calling, is I would say some of the things that are missing are things that I pride myself on from that experience decades ago, that I feel like it's a gift that I get to teach and tell others maybe how to show up and how to deal with a complex sales cycle, or how to negotiate an interesting position, or literally maybe just even how to show up for an on-site visit. There's sellers now that have never seen a customer in person. And there's plenty of stories of that. But when I say I feel like it's a bit of my calling, I literally feel like me landing at Stripe right now at this time of my career is just such a cool opportunity for me to give back a bit. And so that's what gets me excited every day. That's why one of the reasons I love this place.
And part of it is really even the place, Stripe, what you do, how fast you've grown. So maybe for folks who don't know Stripe well enough, just so they can understand the context and the environment, maybe give us just a quick 101 rundown on the company and its history and its growth trajectory, so we can kind of understand what you're operating in the middle of.
Sure. Stripe aspires to basically grow the GDP of the internet. And when our founders, John and Patrick, started the company, the idea was to really make it easier for organizations to do commerce, to take payments on the internet. And so it really enabled small businesses, which frankly are some of our biggest enterprises now. When you think of some of the born in the cloud or born on the internet companies that needed to take payments. But we've grown to become so much more. That financial infrastructure of doing commerce on the internet requires things like complex tax solutions across borders. It requires billing and subscription billing options. You can probably think of a million things that you subscribe to right now that need to bill you for that. The onslaught of technology in the area of stablecoins and what that could mean, and enabling organizations to take payments in stablecoins and be able to pay out in stablecoins in areas where there is no banking regulations or ability to do so. So Stripe has really grown over the last decade to be a really critical part of internet commerce. And what is so exciting about it is we are constantly changing. This next week, we'll hold our Sessions event, which is our largest user conference in San Francisco, and announce some really amazing things that help companies go faster. And as we start to talk about agentic commerce and having agents buy on our behalf, that needs a digital wallet. And Stripe is uniquely positioned to be that. So it's a very exciting time to be here.
So now for context, we have this. We know that you're a CRO at this really cool company. You have a lot of young talent that you're developing to be sellers in an interesting industry, but at an interesting time to be a seller. And so as a leader, I'd be curious, what are you seeing even in the last couple of years that's changing in the way a CRO needs to manage both the science and the art of selling?
I would be remiss if I didn't answer that question immediately with how do we use AI to be more efficient ourselves?
Ding, ding. So, it was like only 10 minutes and we finally got there.
Yeah, exactly. To say it's crazy is probably an understatement. I mean, I personally am learning something new every day in terms of how we can go faster and serve our user base better through AI in our, using it even internally. Now, set aside what our solutions do for our users in terms of using AI for them to be more efficient. I'm talking now about how do we show up better? How do we prospect better? How do we eliminate some of the administrative burden? So for a long time as a CRO and a sales leader, I have preached my job is to give you back more time to be in front of customers. And yet at the same time, I've also burdened people with these laborious forecast conversations and internal administrative needs and deal prep documents, et cetera. All of that is easier these days. And I'm learning every day how to use that to be a better leader.
Well, I'd be remiss now if I didn't ask for a couple specific examples of where you're applying AI, because it's probably a little cliche now to say everybody's trying it, but is anybody seeing any results? So I'd love to know where you're trying and then maybe segue into business impact that you've seen.
I'll give you a couple of very real examples, none of which are necessarily secret sauce things, but we've had a couple of very real examples lately. One, creating JIRA tickets for resolution of variety of user-based or seller-based issues that need to be resolved by back office folks. The creation of those tickets has been a massive pain, I'll just say. We've created some agents that basically go and scrape all the necessary data, create the ticket on our behalf, and we're off and running, which saved hours of seller time, believe it or not. We recently had an example where we got through a legal phase. Well, first of all, we got through a pricing stage, a deal strategy stage and approval for a complex deal, a legal phase, a signed contract only to be given to our deployment teams. And that onboarding team flagged something that was prohibiting this customer from going live and asked the sales team to double back and go through the entire paperwork process again in order to get it right. Somebody asked why. And now we have an agent that essentially goes through a checklist of things to begin with to make sure that never happens again. We've been using AI to help us with lookalike prospecting. So if we find a really great opportunity with a user that has gone fast and is made for a happy, growing customer, we'll go find lookalike scenarios just like that using AI to help in our prospecting. So every day we've enabled our team with the tools to create their own agents. And the best wins, and we share them in a toolbox, and we do a great job of enablement.
Amazing. So do you have any concrete sort of results or business impact stories?
Yeah, on this last one, Tim, we just coming back and reviewing our Q1 data, again, I used an AI agent to basically go through Gong, go through Gmail, go through calendars, go through Salesforce data, et cetera, to run some numbers for me. And in Q1, about 65% of my SMB new business team, the results was in create and close opportunities, meaning we created them in Q1 and we closed them in Q1. But most impressive about that was our average time to close of those create and close opportunities in SMB was 13 days. 13 days. Now, if the opportunity was created in the prior quarter, it was 76 days. So now what do I do with that information? Well, I think it's a direct result of using AI to look for the right opportunities in prospecting, those that close fast. The average deal size was actually still very, very healthy. Those become users who use the platform and see the value of their investment in Stripe faster. But also it can help me in coaching to say if a deal cycle is elongated past our average, is that an investment of time that we need? Is there something else wrong with the opportunity? And is our time better used elsewhere? So yeah, we are seeing some very real results out of using these tools.
Everybody is always talking to me about we have to qualify faster, qualify in, qualify out. And it feels like, well, that's what you got to do when you are trying to reach the world. But you're like, I don't know, I'll call it best client ICP twins. You're looking for the ideal client profile twins out there. And I want you to repeat those numbers in case it was missed. You went from quarter before 76 average days to 13 days. And the main thing that changed was the fact that you were prospecting differently like this.
Well, to be clear, those that were created in Q1 and closed in Q1 closed in 13 days. Those that were created in the prior quarter and closed in Q1 took 76 days. So finding the right opportunities, and again, this is our SMB business, so it's a high volume business with a large number of deals, but you want to make sure that you're spending your time on the right opportunities. And those right opportunities end up delivering results for our customers and users faster as well, by the way. So it's in everybody's best interest.
Right. The better, quicker impact and success stories, and everybody's better off then. So I love that example. I read something, I think Anthropic put it out here recently, where they said that everybody has turned to AI for efficiency plays, but now they're talking about what they're really seeing happening is scope expansion, meaning I feel we'll translate that for sales. I'm doing some things faster than I was. That's awesome. So I can do more, but not just more of the same thing. They're seeing confidence grow and boldness growing to do more things, other things, go after new markets, represent other products, talk to different personas, that the accelerating that confidence, if you will, that AI is increasing scope that way, not just making you better at the thing you've always done. Is that making any sense? Does that resonate with you?
Completely. Yeah. It's a capacity thing, right? And we look very closely as a go-to-market organization about where we invest the next dollar. And of course, like every company on the planet, you want to invest where you're going to get the highest return on investment. I mean, our users are asking that of us too. Why Stripe? And what will that do for me from an economic advantage perspective? When we invest a dollar in go-to-market, we want it to have the highest return. And we're finding that the highest return is frankly in this business because we're using these tools. And as a result of that, creating more capacity to increase our returns. So yeah, Anthropic's a great customer and partner, and I tend to agree with them.
Well, that makes sense too on so many levels. So scaling has been sort of the mantra. I've been jokingly saying that, we used to say during COVID, everything was unprecedented. And now I'm like saying everything's unprecedentedly unpredictable, yet we're being asked more and more to deliver predictable revenue and scalable revenue. And do you see this tool set, AI and alike, being that breakthrough to more predictability and more scale?
I do. And it's funny you use that word because there's a slide that I've used for many jobs now about kind of the 5 things that I really value as a leader, and I'm going to hope to drive with the organization. And one of them is predictability. And predictability can be seen as a very boring thing if you're always doing exactly what we thought you were going to do. But in sales and as a sales leader, that's exactly what I want to drive, right? Like I want to drive an organization that does what we say we are going to do, which means forecast accuracy. It means delivering on our numbers. It means showing up in front of our users and customers. And so, yes, I think that, again, back to this concept that we can use these tools to become more predictable is a good thing because we're going to deliver on the results that we're promising.
What if your next big revenue move didn't come from a blog post or a cold LinkedIn scroll, but from a real conversation with leaders who've been there?
As the world of sales is constantly evolving and constantly changing, I think it's even more critical to get together with people to understand how are they helping to solve some of the problems that our buyers have today.
Meet Emblaze. A community of sharp B2B minds, CROs, CSOs, rising stars, sharing what's actually working in sales, enablement, and customer growth.
We always find a lot of value in the partnerships that we're able to form with some of the other great organizations that are part of the team here. And personally, I love the opportunity to connect with my peer group outside of other organizations and learn from them and try to figure out if there's things that they're doing that we can pull into our organization and benefit from.
Join a monthly forum, dig into science-backed strategy, and get insight you won't find in your feed. Start your Emblaze journey today at emblazegrowth.com.
You said there were 5. Now I'm curious because as maybe an aspiring senior leader or CRO, you have are these 5 mantras? What are they? Are there a couple more you can whip on us?
Yeah, I kind of label them as my leadership principles that are just important to me as a leader. And again, I've repurposed this slide from Philips to the last 3 jobs and even here. They get a little tailored, but the first one is really just about simplification. As a seller for a long time myself, I just really hated complex, overly engineered things that I was being asked to do. So as a leader, I try to clear the deck of all of that noise so that we can give back more time to be with users, which we just talked about how AI can do that for us. The second one, as we just talked about, is predictability. The third one is about being a really collaborative sales organization. Stripe, much like a lot of large tech companies, become very matrixed as we become more specialized. And so as we invest in specialist sellers and specialist pre-sales technical folks and partner and channel organization, as a seller, leveraging all of those really collaboratively, those resources across the organization to bring more resources on my customer's behalf to them, that's the secret sauce as far as I'm concerned, is being a really great resource broker, if you will. The fourth one is world-class selling. Nice plug for you. And I mentioned early in the discussion that I was great to see you for a second time in my career, but being able to confidently deliver the why Stripe value message, and specifically, what is the value to our users and how does it solve their business problems? It is an absolute table stakes kind of thing in my organizations. And so that is a very high priority for us. And again, going back to earlier in career men and women in my team, like establishing that as the baseline is super important. And then the last thing is just about our culture, who we are, what do we want to be known as. I aspire to make this a place where people feel valued, a place where people feel like they can do their best work, a place where they feel safe. I've long said that I want a virtual line of people out the door that want to work in my org because they think there's something going on over there that I need to be a part of. And so culturally, you can't force that. It needs to be something that is organic and you just kind of build over time. But those are the 5 that I lean on.
I hope everybody took notes. Those are an excellent 5. So one of those 5 really jumped out at me, and maybe I'm familiar with the primacy and the recency fact, first and last. It was the last one. You talked about culture. And I know sometimes I think sales is like we're a performance team and you're in if you're doing well and you're out if you're not. And that's the culture. It's just a performance-oriented team and it's a numbers game, but it feels different when you say culture. I'd love to hear more about what you mean by that.
Sure. Yeah. I think, I don't know why in sales there's this romance with the old Glengarry movies where it's got to be, a boiler room kind of approach to sales. But if I think about where I was happiest, I think in my career, it's not overly smart to say when we're happiest, we do our best work. I think we can all relate to that. But when I think about where I was most satisfied in my job, it was times when there was this really interesting blend of feeling incredible accountability to the company and to my peers and to my leaders to show up and do good work, combined with just having a great time and having fun. Sometimes that accountability comes with this heaviness of this burden of not having a lot of fun. And so if you can find that magic where you're creating a place that's a fun place to work and you feel valued and you feel like what you're doing is contributing to something that is making it great for others, and you're also delivering on why you're hired to be there. I mean, we all have job descriptions that pay the bills for the company, why we're hired. you have to find that middle ground. And if I think about the leaders that were most influential in my career, they did that really well, right? I felt like I disappointed them when I didn't show up my best. And they also celebrated the hell out of the times that I did. And that's what I aspire to do and I aspire to be. And that's the type of culture that I try to have. Life is, I don't know, maybe it's just as I'm getting older, but life's just too short not to be in that scenario. There's a million other things we can be doing to deliver impact to our families and to the world. So, make it a place where you can do that.
That's awesome. I want to heart that, but as a leader, maybe give me some examples of where this really works for you and your teams, and it's something you've just incorporated as part of the rhythm of leadership.
Well, I try very hard to connect and meet with my teams where they are, and that's changed over time, right? So I've had leaders in the past that would send a Friday email. I'm thinking back a couple decades, and this leader would send a Friday email and maybe share the recent CD he or she got and was sharing some music preferences. And that worked at the time, but nobody wants another email. Nobody wants another thing to be responsible to do or to read. And I struggled in this role to find out what that was for the first couple of months. I was walking back. Our office here in Chicago is connected to the Merchandise Mart. And I was over there in the food court grabbing a bite. And there's a shoe shine station over there. And I hopped up to get my boots cleaned up. And I had this epiphany. I pride myself on being a relatively creative guy. So I had this epiphany as I was there that one of the things I wanted to do was to give more time back to individuals and invest in understanding and learning them. I was new to the company. I wanted them to get to know me. I wanted to get to know them. And so this idea of time to shine was born, which was I would have my managers nominate somebody each week that was doing great work, that maybe went unnoticed, that I didn't know. I mean, it's hard to know with 100 and some people what everybody's doing on any given day or week. So they would point out these times that they wanted to highlight, and I would give a 1 hour one-on-one and walk over to this shoe shine station, and I would record a short segment. Because while it's not TikTok, it is meeting them where they are. And I've done it about 20 weeks in a row now. I'll record a couple in a week if I'm not in the office for a week and traveling. So every Friday at 9 a.m., these videos drop. And it's a combination of highlighting the great work they did, so their time to shine, as well as just getting to know them, something about them personally that we want to know and understand so that people can collaborate better in the office, et cetera. It's about a 10-minute segment. There's 3 questions. The arc of the segment works really well, and they get a free shoe shine out of the deal on me. So
this is what I was hearing. You're sitting together at a shoe shine stand, so there had to be 2 seats, and you're both getting your shoe shined at the same time as having this conversation.
Yeah, I've actually got the 2 shoe shine guys in my cell phone. I'll text them to make sure that they're there. So yeah, we are getting, and I would say 95% of them have never had a shoe shine before. So it works out pretty good.
They're not wearing shoes that need to be shined normally. So do they know they have to bring a pair with them?
Yes, it's very well known now. Yes.
It's like carpool karaoke, but time to shoe shine.
Yeah.
Shine. That's clever.
Well, that's an
I got to admit.
But I try to meet people where they are, and I try to make it, interesting and fun.
Are you sitting there with the camera? Now I have too many questions.
Okay,
and you're doing selfie, or how does this work?
I had 2 $20 Amazon purchases. One is a total influencer selfie stick kind of tripod with a remote, and the other are the mics. I have got quite the setup, and I just dropped one today with our fearless leader, Tyler Bryson, who I worked at Microsoft with. He was in Chicago this week. Got some serious props from him on my setup. It's not as good as your podcast setup, Tim, but it's not bad.
Yeah, but it can be contained here in the office. It doesn't go mobile to a shoe shine stand. So that's an awesome example. And I think it probably creates a little bit of a halo to see just kind of the things you do. And you're seeing the next generation respond to that, not just because it's cool and it's video and da-da-da-da-da. I mean, it seems, again, I said, authentic and real and all those things. So anything else that's going on that I, as an aspiring CRO, should be thinking about to lead my team?
I know that this comes with other costs and other considerations, but we're really very fortunate to have the investment in this office space here in Chicago. We have about 425 employees for 175 desks, but in 2 weeks, we're opening up the entire second half of this floor, and we'll have a 50% in office or return to office expectation. And I cannot tell you how energizing it is to just have people in one place. And we've grown accustomed to doing things like we're doing today on video, but the amount of collaboration and the amount of energy that everyone feels just being together and the ability to share and do things more ad hoc and faster allows us to do other creative things. So we'll have all hands in the lunchroom and all together. We do things as a Chicago office in terms of philanthropic giving back events. There's all kinds of friendly competitions that go back and forth. I did lose one the other day to a peer where I had to serve him drinks at happy hour one evening. It's hard to describe, and I know this is going back a bit pre-pandemic, but it's really made for a special place. And I don't think you can put a price tag on that. It's really hard to develop that same sense of camaraderie and connectedness virtually. And you know what? The same goes for our users and customers. Getting back out literally in front of customers has unbelievable impact. And so I try to encourage my team to do that as well.
Yeah. I mean, not to get too deep on this, but I mean, we're humans. We were created for community, and we thrive best when we're in community. So fostering that, even in a competitive sport like sales, feels like it's still a part of the leader's success toolkit, if you will. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. And you mentioned that, like, I don't want all of this to overshadow the fact that we still have a responsibility to deliver. I am a very competitive person. I do not like to lose. My family would tell you that I stopped playing Candyland with the kids when they were early because they were young, because that is a luck-based game, not a skill-based game. And so winning and competing is still really, really important to me. But I think you have a heck of a lot more fun winning when you're also doing it together and you're doing it as a team and you feel like you are part of something bigger. So if you can get both of those things, Tim, that's magic.
There you go. And I can't disagree, because it has served you well. And I thank you for serving us and our audience today, Kevin. We know each other, so that's cool. But I mean, I heard new things and fresh things from you, and thank you for being that candid and that liberal with and that generous with your help today. So
of course,
good to see you.
I appreciate the opportunity, Tim. Thank you.
What a great episode. Thank you so much for watching or listening on your favorite podcast app. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow, as it really does help us get the show out to the right leaders who need to hear it. And check out what Emblaze membership is all about by going to corporatevisions.com/community. We would love to have you with us. See you next time.